Hi, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for coming back and joining me. Today, I'm going to talk about 13 things to avoid on your traveling. Things that you need to make sure that you can avoid. One of those things is don't overfill your itinerary. So when you're traveling, you want to make sure that your itinerary gives you time to rest and to go a little bit slow. Sometimes we could just fill in our itinerary with so many things that we get exhausted. So one of the things is to pay attention to your itinerary and to make sure that you have plenty of time to enjoy where you're at and to rest. The second really important thing to try to avoid when you're traveling is overpacking. Make sure that you check the weather, make sure you check what kind of clothes you need, and try to consolidate as much as you can, because traveling light is so much more freeing than if you have bags that you're going to be lugging all over the place. Even if you have people helping you with your bags, it still creates a lot of needless work because you end up really just wearing the same things over and over again because they're comfortable. And many of us, when we are in a new place, we tend to ask the concierge, or we ask locals, and we ask different people advice around things. And that's really a great thing to do, but avoid being 100% reliant on one person's opinion. Kind of talk to different people, talk to the other tourists that you might meet along the way, talk to different locals, and just kind of use your intuition to figure out what everyone is saying. Don't 100% trust and rely on one person only. Sometimes that could be a really great thing, and then sometimes it can cause, it might not be the best. So it's always nice to make sure you pay attention. Is that person really certain of what they're telling you, or are they kind of going, well, maybe, so just pay attention. So when you're taking your photos, I'm sure most of us have our photos that automatically go up to the cloud. So you want to make sure that when you're taking your photos that you have a place for them to go. So if your phone gets stolen or broken, all the photos that you take are either on a SIM card or they're backed up on the cloud, so that no matter whatever happens to your device, your photos are still intact. And one of the things also that when we go traveling, sometimes we need to kind of be aware of our budget. So don't go to a trip without some sort of a budget so that you don't have to overspend, although sometimes it's so easy to overspend. So find processes by which you know how much money you could spend per day or what you're planning on doing. It's kind of nice to have some type of an idea of what your budget is. So one of the things that I've talked about before is make sure that when you are flying, that you have a layover that is longer than 2 hours. You don't want to have your layover shorter than that because you never know what happens. You don't know, coming from the United States to another country, or even from the East Coast to the West Coast. You just want to make sure that you have time in between because you never know what's going to happen. And you should always make sure to get insurance. Don't travel without insurance, because nowadays, with everything that can happen with, COVID changed the dynamics of traveling. And we really want to make sure that we have insurance in case we get sick, so we can get back home. Things can change. So buying insurance, it's so cheap compared to your overall trip cost, and it's nice to have that security. When you get to your destination, you need to take into account jet lag. So when you first land internationally, if you know that you have a hard time adjusting to the time change or you get jet lag, you want to make sure that you don't overfill that first day. Don't overfill that first day so you can acclimate to the time change. Some people are able to just land and get going right away. I've always been the type that needs a little time to rest and get acclimated because I don't sleep well on the plane, if ever. So that's something to be aware of. Don't leave home without copies of your documents, because you never know what can happen. You don't know if your electronics stop working, if you're in a place where you don't get signal, or whatever the situation is. Just want to make sure that you have copies of your itinerary, the important phone calls, documents, copies of your passport, of your COVID vaccine, if you need that for the country you're going to. Even if you're traveling domestically, you want to make sure you have copies so you know if anything should happen, what your next plan is. One of the things that people talk about a lot when you're traveling into a different country is pickpockets. So you don't want to tempt pickpockets. You want to make sure that you don't have anything too flashy that can say, hey, look at me, I have money. You want to make sure that you keep your purse close to you, that you're not tempting pickpockets to target you. Be aware of that. Another thing you want to avoid is foreign transaction fees. There are a lot of credit cards that don't charge foreign transaction fees. So you want to know exactly what your card charges. So there are many cards out there that don't have foreign transaction fees. So you want to make sure that's the card you use when you go internationally. And also, you don't want to bring American Express internationally because no one ever uses it or accepts it. Very few people accept American Express internationally. The other thing you want to pay attention to is don't take a lot of cash. Don't exchange currency in the United States and bring a large sum with you to Europe or wherever you're going. You want to have some cash for sure. You always want to make sure you have, maybe $50 to $200 or whatever to make sure you have cash when you land in case you want to take a cab and they don't take a credit card. But don't take too much money. You can get money there. And the way you want to do that is go to a bank and use their ATM. You will get double charged fee if you go to a freestanding ATM. You always want to look to go to the bank. Another thing that you need to pay attention to is when you're purchasing items in another country, you want to make sure that you have it charged the currency of the country that you're in. Don't have them exchange it to US dollars. Another thing you want to avoid is not doing your research when you get to another country or wherever you go. You want to make sure that you're doing your research. You want to make sure you know about the culture. You want to make sure that you have your excursions planned out, that you know what you want to see, that you have some idea of the country or the place or the city that you're going to. So it's really important to do some research. And with that research, you want to make sure that you are culturally sensitive. Some things are different in other countries. You'll notice that some things are the same, but there's a lot of things that are different. What's acceptable in the United States might not be acceptable in another country and vice versa. So it's good to know the different cultural sensitivities, things that are different. So it's always good to do your research in terms of where you're going, what you want to see, and how the culture is. It's very helpful. That way we don't get as upset or frustrated, because when you're traveling, it's super important to know that things are going to be different and not to get upset, not to say, well, this is stupid. Why is it like this? You just have to go with the new way. You have to be adaptable. You need to be able to bend with the events that happen as long as you're safe. And so that's really important to remember. And the last thing, which of course is probably not the last thing, there are probably many other things, but in terms of this video, the very last thing is when you are traveling anywhere, don't drink too much. Don't over drink, because it puts you in such a vulnerable position. Not only will it suck all your money, it puts you in a vulnerable position. When you're in a different country, sometimes you just don't know what the rules are. Yeah, it's fine to drink and to have a good time, but just be aware of where you are. And if you do decide to drink too much, have a friend who's looking out for you, because you want to be safe. And that's just that's a good rule for anything. So I hope all of these things of what to avoid is helpful to you. And I hope to see you next time. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know what you think is the most important thing to avoid when you're traveling. Have a great day. Ciao for now. Bye.